Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Emily. Hi, Jen. Hi, Jackie. Oh, it looks like Jackie and Cameron are still logging on. Hey, Josh.
Hello,
How's it
y'all.
going?
Oh, groovy. Just hanging out by Josh's mirror wall.
Nice. It makes everything seem so big, right? Like,
Are there things happening in front of you or behind you? You just don't know.
Just don't know. Is anyone going to come down the stairs? You'll know before I do.
Hi. So if folks would like to just say quick hellos in the chat, we welcome that. We'll get started in a couple minutes. Just allow people a couple more minutes to join. We are recording, so I think it's on speaker view, right? So if you talk, you will show up on the recording. So if you would prefer to not have your face shown in that portion, please turn your camera off. If you plan on speaking.
I'll say something funny I saw on Facebook. It's really funny. You guys want to hear it? It
Sure.
made me laugh, so I'm going to share it. Okay, ready? Here it goes. The United States is $22 trillion in debt, and they have the audacity to give me a credit score? Worry about yourself, baby girl. It's so funny. It's so funny. Sorry, simple humor.
Yeah, it's like, where's the 360, you know? Yeah.
Could you imagine if all US residents got to like give the government a 360 review? That'd be awesome.
Not
Who
this
would
year.
read them?
Not this year. Would not be a good year for me to give a review for anyone.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Is it the afternoon? Is it the evening? Hello, hello.
Hello, this is Mita. I'm on the phone.
Hi, Mita.
Hello, how are you?
Doing all right. Thanks for being with us. Welcome, Carrie. Yay.
I have a silly question. I think everybody in the chat has like an official title. Am I supposed to be here?
Yeah, this is open to
I wanted
anyone.
make
You
sure
are.
I'm not like crashing a board meeting.
Oh,
Okay.
and actually,
No,
all of
I
our
don't
board
have a
meetings are
title.
open. All of our board meetings are open to the membership. So if you're a member, you would be welcome, even if that were the case. So, but no, this is this is a FAQ Q&A session for our membership. We're recording it to share more broadly, and you are very welcome.
Thanks.
So thank you. Just give it one more moment. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks all for joining. So I'm Lee Goldenberg. I use she, her pronouns. I am the treasurer of the board as of this most recent term. I spent 2 years as board president. I'm now in my 6th year as a member of the board, and prior to that chaired the outreach committee. I've been a member since we started accepting members in 2011. So one of the first 100 folks to join, and very happy about the 1,200 and something other people that have joined since then in this decade of the project. So thanks for being here tonight. We have our general membership meeting coming up on October 1st, and that is going to be our final general membership meeting before we officially open our doors. And so there are a number of things that we are bringing to the membership for your input and your vote as we shift over from this organizing stage to the operating stage. And so the conversation today is around a proposal that we're putting forth to increase our equity share price. Chad led a session over the weekend about a bylaws change, and so that video was recorded and is out as well. So if you have questions about that ballot measure, please check that out. So what we'll do today is I'm just going to share a little bit of context on what got us here to this decision, and then sort of walk through in my version of the FAQ document that we put out that has questions that we thought about, that we heard from some other folks that we wanted to address, and then hear questions from all of you. So I'm going to talk for a little bit, and if either Chad or Lori, if other questions come up in the chat, if you could help keep track of those for me, I would appreciate it. Great. Lori is our general manager and Chad is our board president. So thank you for supporting. Great. So we signed our lease at 2031 South Juniper in November of 2016. So that is almost 4 years. And we ran a capital campaign, which we completed April a year ago. That was just over $1.2 million. And since that time, there have been a number of things that have changed, most notably in the last 6 months with the pandemic. And so with that, our original amount of money that we were raising to open the store and to ensure adequate capitalization and support for our lenders and running a business that we are confident in being sustainable for a number of years, the amount of money that we need has changed. So we're looking at a few different ways to both solve that in the short term as we get ready to open, and also in a long-term sense to ensure our fiscal health. Some of the increases, as you can imagine, there were delays in construction. Construction shut down for a period of months. During that time, we were still supporting our staff. And then when construction restarted, things took longer, costs increased, and then we're looking at, what does it mean to operate a grocery store in a pandemic? The realities of what we need have changed, both on tactical things that happen in the space, how we want to staff and support our staff, and also notably offering delivery from day one. That was not something that we had intended at the very beginning. And also recognizing that the projections that we've been working on for this project for a decade, there's a lot of unknowns because folks might not come into the store if they get delivery. What are they going to miss about the co-op experience? There's a lot that we're trying to project forward. So we have this gap, and we talked about at the spring general membership meeting, what we were doing to address that gap in funding. And one thing that we continue to increase is our member equity through new member owners. But that we're recognizing is there's an additional need for investment from our members for a few reasons. One, this is our co-op, we own it. Member equity is all of our stake in that store. So we have 1,335 households that jointly own this co-op. Most of you, I believe, are member households, or maybe you're representing two. And so that equity stake has not grown necessarily as a percentage of the project as we've gotten funding from the government through relief funding, or looking to increase investment from our community lenders, donations, grants, that sort of thing. So the board and Lori have been working a lot on bringing in those other sources. And in June, as we were looking at, okay, what are the ways that we're going to really make all of the finances work, we looked at additional member equity and what that might mean for each individual household to increase their equity stake. And so what we're talking about today is moving from the $200 investment to $300. And so I'm going to now break that down even more. So why are we making the recommendation? As I talked about, this there is a financial need, and we believe the healthiest way to support the business is to share that with our membership because we all own it. And we can, as much as everyone has an appetite for the details, dig into why on that the financial measures required in terms of what our lenders need when we receive loans. That's money that we're going to have to pay back, and often with interest, right? But when there is equity, that is money that stays within the store, within the co-op. And the reason that we're specifically bringing this to a vote, there are two. One is in our current bylaws, it is within the board's right to increase equity along with inflation. So the board could have said, all right, based on inflation, we could raise equity to $230. That wasn't appealing to us because we don't want to make a decision about that without all of your input. We all own this together. And so while we're sharing this information, this recommendation, it is a vote for every member owner household to have a say in. Also, moving an additional $30 wouldn't have the financial impact over time necessarily. And we don't want to go back and forth and keep doing this. We have not changed member equity in 10 years. This is a really critical moment for us and a time that we are making this recommendation and this change, and not to do it in necessarily smaller increments over time. So it's just very important that we hear from the membership on this, and that this is a way that you see yourself and your fellow members supporting the co-op. Okay, and so why is equity so important? It is the foundation of our business. If you think about another business that might have a couple of key investors, right? Someone who says, you know what, I have $1 million, I'm gonna open a grocery store. I've made $1 million at this other one, I'll use it to open this next one. We don't have that. We have this very widely distributed base of members that are all sharing that lift equally. So it costs a lot of money to open a grocery store. We've had this lease, we've have to buy all of this equipment. We are going to buy inventory. We have been paying Lori as our general manager, and we'll be bringing on additional staff. There, as you can imagine, are a lot of costs involved. And additionally, opening at this time of year with all these unknowns is costing us more. And having all of us invest in that together feels important. So we, of the now $1.6 million on the project, we've raised more than 1.4 million. And there are ways that we are bringing in the remaining 5% of the project outside of this equity share increase. So I want everyone to understand that we aren't thinking, okay, we'll vote on this, people will all pay an additional $100 and that's it. We're not placing the full burden on the membership. We are sharing this in a variety of ways. So we have over $100,000 in grant applications out there. If anyone has worked in fundraising, you just don't know about those grant applications. And the timing would probably not work out for us, right? So we're pursuing funding to support our delivery system. We wouldn't get it until after we open, right? So we need that money for when we're going to spend it. Our Basics Box program has really supported our operating funds during this time. So anyone who's purchased a Basics Box or any of the other offerings on our bi-weekly Friday sales, that has really helped us get going and keep going, which is great, and make connections with our future vendors and fulfill our mission at this time when we thought we were going to be serving you in the grocery store and we're still getting groceries to our community. And we are reopening our member loan campaign. So we have a number of folks who have made interest bearing, or they've chosen to forego interest, investments in the store. And so we will be going to the membership to say, that's something that you can do if you want to deepen your investment. Those are $1,000 and above. So that is another way that we are raising funds, but it's important to note that member loans is money that will eventually be paid back. And because we've been in this campaign for a number of years, our very first member loans are due in 3 years. So that money would have to be replaced with revenue when the store is operating to be able to repay it. And we have, as I mentioned, government support that came in due to COVID, and we have our community lenders interested in supporting us accepting that and increasing their investment and changing some of our loan terms to support us at this time. But our community lenders are saying we need to see this from the membership. The membership needs to support the increases the way that the lenders are themselves. So why, when we do a share price increase, would it have to be across the board? Now, different co-ops do different things. It's often state by state. And so we think that it's very important that it's one household, one vote, and that everyone has invested similarly. So it's not like you pay more money and you have more of a say in the things that we vote on, right? We want that to be very equitable. It was not an option for us to invest, like to just make it optional to pay more for some of those reasons. And then there are sometimes things called non-voting preferred shares, where you could invest more and not get an additional vote. But when we talk to council in the state of Pennsylvania, that would be an additional securities offering similar to our member loans. So it'd be extremely cost prohibitive to offer that in a way that wouldn't actually bring us, you know, like the amount that we would bring in relation to the amount we would spend, it did not make sense. The attorneys did not recommend it. And so that's why we're saying, okay, let's see if everyone is willing to do this increase. So yes, okay, next thing. So you might be thinking, okay, what's in it for me? Why should I invest more? Many of you have invested your $200 long ago, right? When we signed this lease, we already had half of the membership that we have now. Most of our members are fully paid. We hope that the additional $100 would be something that folks, if they're able to do, would be willing to do and support us in opening. And we know that this is going to not only help us open, but also focus on the things we need to do operationally once we are open. It's very difficult once the store is open to come back and ask for more and to continue fundraising. We really need Lori and her team to focus on operating a successful grocery store, and the board to support that and shift our focus away from fundraising. We want to make sure that we're adequately staffed, that we have the inventory that we need in advance of the holiday shopping season, and that we're compensating our staff. We have seen other co-ops that have made these increases later after opening, and doing that at a time when there's not a big event or reason necessarily to do so does make it difficult for people to choose that investment. We also know that once we're open, additional lending and grants and all of that will be much harder to come by because we'll be operating and we will have revenue. So yes, an important thing to note about equity is that when we turn a profit, which will be quicker if we have more working capital through things like equity, members that are members in good standing will share the profits of the co-op, right? That is, patronage refunds is something that our board can authorize when we are profitable. And when we look at our financials with an increased equity share, we get to that much quicker. And so there are people in different camps, right? In terms of where you are with your equity investment. So you paid your $200 long ago, great. If you can pay, if this vote should pass and we do increase and you are able to pay the $100, we would say, okay, please do it quickly if you can, because we're hoping to bring about $20,000 in for additional equity through this effort in the month of October to support our opening. We would get there if 200 households all gave $100. And that's out of 1,335 households, which will also keep growing. Or 400 households could do $50, or if 800 households could do $25. We're really interested in spreading this in a way that people can do it within their own means. There will not be anything punitive that happens if you cannot increase your investment, right? You could go on a payment plan to pay $25 for the next 4 months. We are aiming to be as flexible as possible. And no one will be a member out of good standing. So the things that you get as a member, such as member discount days in the store or voting for a board in the spring, all of that will be maintained. So that was really important to us when we were talking about this. And we have a community equity fund, which provides financial access to the co-op. And we're keeping that price as it is. So that's a $25 share, and we have a fund that people contribute to offset the remainder of that equity. And we've had donations come in already to offset the increase in equity for those people who are already members within that. So that arrangement would not change for anyone on the community equity fund. If you have joined and you're already on a payment plan, you could just extend your payment plan, change it. Our thinking right now is that we will, hopefully in conversations like these, encourage folks to pay what they can of the additional equity. And then by the spring general membership meeting, after we've had operations and seen how this has gone, we'll at that point discuss what our plans are in terms of when this grace period would come to a close. But it would not be before the spring, because we just have a lot of unknowns, and we know that our members do too. So payment plans are definitely a thing, and we are really thinking that, you know, rather than have a few individuals carry this, whether it's through additional member loans or donations or what have you, we really want the membership to own this together in this choice. And then, you know, if you're able to do the $100 and you know that another member can't, that's why we're all in this together and we're distributing it out. So then the question is, what happens if we vote no, which is totally an option, right? We will be talking to the membership then about other ways that we need to fundraise, whether that's through donations, additional member loans. We're really hoping to get $20,000 in additional equity by October 31st. If we don't hit that and some of our other goals, like I said, our focus will be still on fundraising and less on the community engagement and serving our mission through operating the grocery store. And so with that, I'm going to pause because I've talked for a long time. I can get more detailed, and some other members of the board and the finance committee are here to help me respond to things based on whatever detailed questions folks might have, or yeah, so I'll open it up. Don't be shy. You can type it if you don't want to talk to the room. That's also fine. I guess one thing I can also mention, while people are maybe working up the courage, is how this fits into what equity looks like across the region. So when we started at $200, that was a share price for a few other co-ops. Now there's only us and one other co-op at $200 for the equity share price. It's $200 to $400 at the co-ops that we looked at in the region. And the other co-op that has a $200 equity share price is a long-standing co-op that has been turning profit significantly, right? So the need for additional member equity is just different than our need at this point. And so we did want to make sure that we're staying in line with other co-ops. That's really important to us. And, you know, access and making sure that our co-op is open to all is very core to what we do. And so we don't take this lightly, that $100 more than what we've been asking we recognize the severity of this, and we would not have brought it up if we didn't believe that this is going to help us both in the short term and in the long term, and have been talking about it for months to make sure that we've done our due diligence on this. Other Board of Finance folks, Lori, are there things that we've talked about that I didn't mention in this rundown? Things to bring up?
Sure. I mean, I would just say also that the long-term impact of this is that we'll be growing our equity each and every single year. And so when you look at that, over, 8 years or 10 years, it totals up, based on our projections, up to almost $100,000. Think about how we're going to have to replace equipment in the long term, being able to finance that ourselves, being able to pay off our senior debt. Some of our debt is at better interest rates than others. That equity gives us the flexibility to really, own and control our business in a way that debt from outside lenders and investors does not do. And so even though our loan terms don't necessarily compromise our autonomy, there are hoops that we have to jump through, and there are certain measures and metrics that we have to meet in order to satisfy and satiate our funders. And so being able to hold and own more control of our business through equity gives us just a much better place to build from. And so we're constantly building that up. And I think that, we're committed to making sure that we can come up with additional new ways of doing payment and investment plans. So, looking over the lifetime of the co-op, we have a very rapid investment plan, because we are a startup. But as we really get our footing on the ground, the stores open, the dynamics of building member ownership is different, and the needs start to change because our debt to equity ratio and our debt service coverage ratios and all of these key financial benchmarks that probably sound like really stiff, that are also very important to like the reporting that we have to provide to our funders. Once we are in a better place in relation to that, we will even be able to further open up the horizon of like how we make sure that the co-op is accessible to our whole community, as far as like what kind of installment plans we can have. And the more equity that we have, the more we can advance, like Leah said, our mission, and really be able to live our values to their fullest potential. So capitalization is key. And I also just want to add that managing a cash-strapped business is not a fun endeavor. It is very difficult. So I would hate to see for us to go down that road. And additionally, when we have that and we're able to be in a strong financial place, we're going to be able to do a lot more. So I think that this is a wise move. It is certainly difficult to be facing this question right before the store opens. But, as Lee said, dealing with it now is much better than waiting to deal with it when there is a crisis on our hands. And so I think that, taking care of this now will allow us much more smooth sailing, throughout the initial early years of the co-op, which are very vulnerable, as everybody knows, or most folks have heard. Majority of businesses fail in their first couple years, and now co-ops have much better success rate than our more like corporate counterparts. And the reason for that is owner investment, owner equity, that we're sharing that, and that we're more committed as a community to ensure the success of the business. And so this equity is one financial representation of that. And it is an important one. It is part of that, member economic participation, one of the cooperative principles that makes it possible for us to be more successful than those other types of businesses that are out there. So, I just thank everybody for your consideration and this very, interesting and possibly difficult decision, to make, because I know, everybody has a different financial, situation on their hands. So just thank you so much for considering this, and we will work with anybody who is unable to, cover this financially at this time. We will definitely make sure that everybody is still an owner and has all their rights and benefits.
Thanks, Lori. Any other questions? Nothing too detailed or too dry. Jump on. Yeah.
Hi, this is Adam. So I have a couple of really quick questions. And first, just want to thank you, Lee. I missed a little bit because my internet dropped out, and the rest of the board for kind of working through this and kind of making recommendations and things. I certainly do not have the wealth of experience that you all do. My question is really kind of about how you see this impacting member growth, and also kind of how you envision sort of operationalizing that kind of ask around getting $100 from folks, and is there concerns on what might happen if if folks start to ask for that equity back or what have you. So
I'll speak first to some of our plans just about getting the word out about this, and then I think that dovetails into how would we be collecting the $100. This session is a first step in that. We have a number of emails and a text campaign planned leading up to the general membership meeting. We have seen from participation in, because we've moved to electronic voting, that we're seeing higher participation rates in votes and things like this. So I have faith in the awareness of this. And I believe that if we get the messaging right, people who can give the money will before store opening. And then once we have shoppers, we're going to have so many more touch points with our members than we would have before. And especially in the 6 months that we haven't been able to host in-person events or attend, street fairs and things. So I can't speak to exactly what Lori will do in the store, but I imagine that there will be things like, hey, Adam, you're a member, what's your member number? Great. It seems that you've paid 250 of the 300. Would you like to add a payment today? Those are things that we can incorporate into our process, and having those connections with members as they're shopping. We have not seen a high rate of people asking for their equity back, even as they move out and out of the neighborhood. The investment is still in there. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to this. This is my personal take, but because we're not saying pay the $300 or you're a member not in good standing, people who pay the $200 would stay as members. And I would hope that, seeing whatever the memberships decides, and people knowing that we're all part of this together, that they would, still have faith in us, even if it's not something that they financially can do themselves. And because I answered the second question first, I now forgot what the first question was. So I don't know.
Just I guess would be do you perceive $300 to be an obstacle for new members at all, versus 200? I don't know that I do. I'm just trying to understand that, and part of my
right. I mean, our hope
questions.
Is that if $300 is an obstacle, we have the Community Equity Fund, and we are going to continue to fundraise around that. We're in talks about, with a few folks, about forming a nonprofit that could accept donations even when we're operating, to help offset equity shares, so that there is more financial accessibility, not just at the South Philly Food Co-op, but other co-ops in the region. So that's something that we're talking about and taking very seriously. And I think when we see what the rate of members that are able to increase or do increase, how we adjust the Community Equity Fund or seek support to offset the increase for people, is definitely something we're interested in. Yeah, we would not want this to be in exchange for access. Right. And so that's why we're looking at as many mechanisms as possible to spread this out over time, and then continue to bolster our Community Equity Fund.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just also want to piggyback off of what Lee was saying, in that, you know, to get in the door and become a member owner, it's $25 to get started, or $5, and that is not something that we plan on changing at this time. So while the installment plans may take longer, and that we have to, you know, articulate that there is a $300 share cost, which is definitely different than $200, folks are still going to be able to start with $25 or $5 if they're on a limited income. So we still have that talking point that is out there as a way for us to articulate, you know, how easy it is to get started.
Thanks for the question and for being here.
Question.
Hi. Yes.
Hi. If one has been fortunate enough to be able to pay all the installments to date, and this were to pass, what would be the easiest way to start up installment payments again, or just the whole payment?
That feels like an operational question. Lori, could you jump in on how people do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So through our CRM, you know, our CRM, which contains like our database and all of our member equity payments to date, basically there is a page that any owner can sign in on. Just log in and it'll show you what you owe. And so, like, say for example, you're currently an owner that hasn't fully invested. Tomorrow, you would be getting an email from us reminding you that it's time for your installment. So basically, we will be able to send out an email letting folks know where they stand. It'll be like right in the body of their email, and then a link that they can click on to go on and just enter into a payment plan or pay the full amount up front. So they can, you know, just start initiating away right there. So it's pretty simple to make that happen. And then of course at the register, we can also sign folks up, take their payment there. And we also offer Square payment through our Square system as well. So there's basically 3 ways that folks can invest depending on, you know, what they're most familiar with, like depending on how they engage with the co-op, like online more, or in the store, or through like our online ordering system.
I'll pop in with one. Lee, in your rundown, super helpful. You were describing the that there would be like a grace period for sure of like, you know, even if folks are staying at 200, they're not able to make additional payments at this time. Grace period, folks still have all their member owner rights and benefits. That's lovely. And that probably sometime around the spring general membership meeting, we as a community would have some sort of conversation or path forward or something around then like how that grace period might close, something like that. So I think I'm just asking with curiosity, and it's very possible this has not been explored deeply yet, and that would be a bajillion% okay. But do we have any thoughts or yeah, just like any references or ideas out there of like what that transition might look like? Or how we could
we've floated a couple of different processes and potential ideas, but haven't honestly put the numbers to them in terms of what that means for our equity going forward. I think because we wanted to see what the initial investment rate would look like, and then give our operations a little bit of time to see how that's going. So it would be no fewer than 6 months, and probably another 6 after that, because we would have the general membership meeting and then say, okay, this is closing, because we would want to give people plenty of notice. And I also imagine that it would be based on when you completed investment. It's not that it would be like December 31st, 2021, everyone has to be paid up. It would be based on when you had completed your equity. So anyone that's paid up to date, it might be one situation. If you're on a payment plan and your payments weren't going to come due until January, February, you might have a little longer. Those were some of the things we're talking about.
Okay, great, that makes sense, thank you.
Please, other people that were in that conversation, if I missed something, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add that just as folks who are on an installment plan are in good standing while they are on that plan, or say we have, we do have a number of folks who are not on an installment plan. When they get on one or they start making an investment, then they become eligible for the benefits that they're currently, on hold for. So, I picture that playing out in a very similar way. So that way, you know, folks get a chance to say, okay, you know, I'm not ready. When they are ready, you know, they'll start, and then hopefully, you know, be able to, you know, jump back on. So like wherever they left off, you know, you can get the doors open. We're ready to accept you, and we will, you know, give you your benefits. And of course, the store's open to the public, so they'll get to come in and, you know, experience the store from themselves, which I think will also aid in feeling the reality of this situation. Like, we did it, we have our store open and it's awesome. And so this is something you want to support as soon as you're ready and able to do so.
And something I've noticed whenever something comes up that people utilize their benefits for, like a board election, that's when people are often finding out, oh, I am behind on my payments, I can't vote in, you know, like we get that. So I think when it's a member discount day and there's some special item that you're like coming up to the register for, then you would find out and say, okay, like now I can do it. So it's not a, there's no shame in that. We're like happy to meet people, like Lori said, wherever they are, and to get people in good standing, even with a $5 payment towards their equity at that point, just to get restarted. And so that's something that we've seen. And I imagine, yes, with many more touch points with shopping, that will happen. We have about 5 minutes left on the time that we planned. Of course, I'm happy to stick around, but I don't know what people have on their stove. What other questions? And I should say that if you walk away from this, you look at the FAQ, there's something else that you would like us to answer. This FAQ is a living document. So we will continue to add questions and responses as they come in. You can always send an email to governance@southphillyfood.coop. And that is the way that we're funneling any questions or concerns. So many beans. Any questions or concerns to the board and through the governance committee. So yeah, there's the link, governance@southphillyfood.coop. Are there other things that you would want us to consider, even if it's not, we need an answer for this today, but something like how would payment plans work? How would this work? Just because we haven't talked about it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be thinking about it. So we're open to hearing from you all about what else you want the board and Lori to be considering.
I'll say something quickly. First, thanks for laying all this out. I'm like thinking of this in multiple ways, as like a member, as someone who sat on the board and thought about the finances, and personally with my own dollars. And like, I think from everything you've laid out, it makes financial sense, and I can see like how and why the board is presenting this. And it seems like, yes, obviously we should be the owners and have the majority stake in the co-op. And I think the one place where I have some questions, and it's more just around like thinking about the bigger picture, is I think to the point that Adam made earlier of like, I know, and I just know this from having been involved, there are so many people that are members that don't live in the area, that like, you know, are sort of members in spirit or in solidarity, or they left their membership stake with us even as they moved on in life to other ventures. And I think so, like, I'm thinking of wanting to strike that balance of like, yes, we need you to pay the additional equity without hopefully like alienating these people. So while I believe like, yes, this makes a lot of sense for our co-op in many ways, I also just wonder how that balance is taken into consideration, so that we're like not scaring folks away that have really like been interested, like been wanting to support this for so long. And it's in some ways because of them that our membership growth happened. And at the same time, I don't want to vote in fear of something. Like, I don't like taking that position. I don't like acting out of fear or making decisions out of fear. So I don't want that to be the guiding principle either. It's just like, how do you navigate all of it? So not a question, but like, those are the things that I'm wrestling with.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think that that's where we can lean into, if you are able, here is a way that you continue to help the co-op. And if you're not, that's okay. And that's why there's 1,300 plus of us, right? Because we only need 200 people in the month of October to say, I can give the $100, right? And if we have more than that, great. If there's fewer, then we'll be focusing on something else. And it really would be a long-term effort to have everyone get up to that full investment amount. And yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to think about. How do we identify and talk to those people specifically, you know, outside of our individual relationships? And so that's something that we can dig into. I appreciate thinking about that.
Yeah, I just want to say also, like, once the store opens, we're going to have a whole new level of data that we're going to have access to. So we will be able to see, like, who's coming into the store the most frequently, who's spending the most at the co-op. That's how we determine your patronage refund. So it's not like some weird creepy thing that all co-ops do it. We need to be able to track your patronage points. Through that mechanism, we will be able to identify the folks who are frequenting the co-op and be able to, you know, reach out to those folks. So I think, you know, there will be folks who haven't come in at all, you know, in a year. The messaging to them is going to be different. The messaging to them will be more about, like, hey, come check out your store. Like, look at what you did. So I think, you know, it's through that kind of segmentation that we can be a welcoming force and make sure that we're sending the right message to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, I thought, I was thinking of something, and I'm not super familiar with memberships that involve equity, but there's, in other membership areas, there's often like remote members or out-of-state memberships, or ways in which somebody from a distance can support at a not as a high as of investment or fee. So that might be something to look into, like to maintain limited access, like maybe online access, but not access in the store. I mean, that's difficult because that restricts access in some way, but it might be interesting to think about, like, how to protect protect those people that have invested and cared about the co-op, and also not like have to expect more, or
Yeah, I think the Community Equity Fund actually is a great space for that, because you could convert your equity share potentially into supporting somebody else who doesn't have the financial means. That's one possibility, like if you're not going to use the benefits of actually coming into the store. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it would look different than equity because of the one household, one share, one price model that we're in, and that's part of why this has to be voted on by the full membership, because we can't have people in tiers. But I think there are different mechanisms that we can keep people support and ask for it if they aren't interested in being a full member for a myriad of reasons. So thank you, Christine. Any last words? Any last questions before we sign off for the evening? So what I will ask is, because we've got a few people here, but this is a small percentage of the membership, and you are here in this community. So please talk to your friends, neighbors, fellow members, or as we like to say, not yet members. Ask people to join. We still have a goal of having 1,400 members by opening day. So there's going to be a big push from where we are now. And talk to people to help them understand what we discussed today, look at the FAQ, vote, and make an informed vote, right? Tis the season to be an informed voter. And so please, in your conversations, let people know about what's happening. We do want to have a good representation from across the co-op lending their voice to this decision, because it is a big one, and we should all have a say. Great.
Thank you all. Thanks for hosting this.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Good
all.
to see some faces and names, and stay safe and well, and we'll see you on October 1st for even more big news.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.